Last night, Abby Phillips on CNN accidentally gave Trump a great nickname. We talked about him. We called him Batman last week. She said it last night. She said Trump makes himself Batman and the nation's capital is Gotham City. She meant that, of course, as a criticism. but normal people say, yep, that's about right. About time Batman came along and tried to clean up the violence and the crime in our nation's cities. You want to know what is one of his superpowers? Batman didn't have superpowers. He just had Robin. he had the laser in his pocket and the ropes to climb up the buildings and the Batmobile. He didn't have a superpower. Superman had the superpowers. You know what Trump's superpower is? Getting the lunatics on the left to take the bait. And he does it over and over and over and over again. Here's the latest example. Now Democrats are staking a position that blue cities, Democrat-run big cities, ought to stay dangerous. They're not in favor of making places like Washington, D.C. safer. That's quite a position to take. I saw a headline a few minutes ago on one of the TV screens in my studio. D.C. mayor ramps up the rhetoric against Trump's takeover of the law enforcement community in D.C. She doesn't want, apparently, her own city to be safer. This is exactly what Trump is so good at. He has gotten them to take another unpopular position. Do you really think it's popular to be against cleaning up crime? I want to play for you some of the MSNBC crazies. And this one takes the cake. Here's one of the loonies over on MSNBC. Now, keep in mind, MSNBC, like the rest of us, we're all in the business to try to inform and to give you information and news and stories. Well, Simone Sanders says that the only reason people think there's a problem with crime in D.C. is because of the crime that we're reporting on the news.
The issue that people keep citing is about the young people, the carjackings, right? The kids running into a CVS and taking things out the CVS. That is juvenile crime. And so how are the police officers or the National Guard going to address the issue of juvenile crime? And until we start talking about the policy, let's talk about the crime bill that D.C. passed last year that could be strengthened, right? Let's talk about that. But Donald Trump is using rhetoric and playing on the real fears that some people have because of what they've seen on the news or maybe what they themselves have experienced.
What they've seen on the news. Yeah, carjackings, muggings. Oh, look, this guy got shot over here. Oh, look, this lady got raped over there. Oh, look, these people got mowed over here. Oh, look, that's what, so people are relying on what they're seeing and hearing on the news. And that's why they're thinking things are bad in D.C. They don't exactly have the best and the brightest over at MSNBC. And while we're on the subject of Simone Sanders, let me give you another one of her hits from her appearance yesterday with Rhino Joe Scarborough on MSNBC.
You don't think more police make streets safer?
No, Joe, I'm a black woman in America. I do not always think that more police make streets safer. When you walk down the streets of Georgetown, you don't see a police officer on every corner, but you don't feel unsafe. So what is it about talking about places like Southeast D.C., right, Ward 8, if you will, that people say, well, we need more officers to make us safe? I think we have to rethink what safety means in America.
That's right out of Zohran Mamdani's playbook. Police don't make communities safer. These lunatics on the left believe. And they do. They really believe that. I know that that's a core conviction that they have. They believe that when a man is brutally beating his wife, they should send a social worker instead of a police officer. They believe that if a mentally unwell adult son is stabbing his parents, they should send some social workers to the scene to sing Kumbaya and hold his hand. That's the Zohran Mamdani. And incidentally, I'm going to tell you right now, unless something drastic changes, Zohran Mamdani is going to get elected. The polling shows him light years ahead of Cuomo, Adams, and Sliwa. That's today. And the only thing that can stop it at this point is for Sliwa, Eric Adams, Cuomo to consolidate. That's the only chance. And if those men with large egos, and one of them happens to be a friend of mine, the best thing that could possibly happen to New York City is for Curtis Sliwa to be elected. Full stop. That's it. That would be the absolute best case scenario. But you've got massive egos with Eric Adams. You've got massive ego with Andrew Cuomo. And you got a very confident guy like Curtis. I don't think Curtis suffers from a lack of confidence. Until there is some consolidation, the inevitable is going to happen, and these morons in New York City are going to hand the city over to a communist, a full-fledged, self-described commie, a guy who wants to redistribute the wealth, a guy who wants to punish financially successful people, a guy who doesn't believe in bail for criminals, a guy who hates the cops, a guy who is everybody's worst nightmare, except that small faction of America that stays in that fringe, lunatic, radical left. That's what's going to happen in New York City. And there is a part of me that thinks they're going to deserve it. I hate it for every one of them, and I shouldn't give up. I played a clip from George Will the other day. He was on with Bill Maher, and George Will himself, a conservative, said, you know, about every 20 years, something this nuts has to happen to a place like New York so that the whole country can observe the failed experiment of socialism and communism. So, but Simone Sanders, she parrots the talking points of Zohran Mamdani. More police don't make a community safe. That's like saying, you know, using a bucket to scoop out water from a sinking canoe doesn't get the water out. That's like saying that an air conditioner doesn't make things cooler. That's like saying the sun doesn't make things warmer. Police officers are the only line of defense between the criminals, the good guys, the good guys and the criminals. 15 past the hour, and I struggle with this. I struggle with this big time. On the one hand, I want to fight for New York. I grew up as a kid dreaming of the day I could get a job in New York City. We went on field trips to New York when I was a high school band geek, and we took field trips and saw Broadway shows and saw concerts and saw Yankees games. I fell in love with New York as a little kid. What New York is going to become under Zohran Mamdani is inconceivable. And I hate it, but it looks right now inevitable. Or is it? 800-655-MIKE, 800-655-6453. Welcome in. It's Wednesday. It's hump day. We have a lot to do here in the Relief Factor studios, but it all begins with you at 800-655-MIKE, 800-655-6453. One number does it all. You could call or text. Call us on our talk lines. Text us on the MyPillow text line. Same number, 800-655-6453. Let's get your take on all of it coming up.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.